Hello and welcome to my Azure Quick Hits video series. In this video, I'm going to show you how to restrict a subnet to a particular resource group so that any machine built in that resource group has to consume that subnet. Otherwise, it'll fail in the validation phase. So let's get started. In my Azure portal, I've created three resource groups, one called Core Services, one called Dev, and one called QA. Inside Core Services, I have a VNet called non-prod. In that non-prod has two subnets, one called QA subnet and one called Dev subnet. So the goal here is to make sure that any machine that's built in the Dev resources group or in the QA resources group gets either the Dev subnet or the QA subnet. To do this, we're going to use an Azure policy that was created by a guy named DCtheGeek. Sorry. Anyway, it works really well. So all you have to do is click on Deploy to Azure. And what that does is add it to your Azure policy engine. There you go. The first thing we're going to do is to find the location where this policy is going to get applied. So click on the three dots and then choose the subscription where you're going to apply it. Now note, this is going to be applied at a subscription level, so even though I've got a management group up there, I'm not going to use it in this case. This policy is just applied to a couple of resource groups inside a specific subscription. Click Select, and then come back and give this policy a name. This name is effectively the title of the policy and what we'll use to search for, or what we'll search for when we want to reapply it to another resource group. The second thing is, in the description, make sure you put in a fairly good description so that the next person who comes along really understands what this is all about. Now, from a category perspective, I'm going to use network because this is a network policy. You can create custom one if you want. Once that's done, click Save. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see when the policy's been saved. Now, before we move on, we need to go and get the resource IDs for the two subnets. To get those resource IDs, we're going to use the Azure Resource Explorer. So open up a new tab, and then type in resources.azure.com. Select the subscription you're working in. In my case, that's the Microsoft Azure Internal MG Demo. Then you're going to select the provider, Microsoft Network. And then you're going to select Virtual Networks. Now, scroll through until you find the subnet. And we're going to copy the two resource IDs for the subnets. So under the QA subnet, we're going to copy that entire resource ID, save it in Notepad, and then do the same thing for the Dev side. When we've got those, we'll then return back to the portal, click on the resource group where we're going to assign this policy. So in this case, Dev. Click on Policies. And then I'm going to click on Assign Policy. And from the Assign Policy window, you can see this is the Dev environment. If we had any exclusions, we could use them, but we don't. We want the subscription to apply. We want this policy to apply to the entire subscription. So here's where we're going to choose the policy definition, the one we just defined. So we're going to change that to Custom, and there you can see the one we created, Demo Subnet. Again, put in a comprehensive description, or at least what the policy does. And then we go down to the subnet ID. So in this case, I'm going to go back to Notepad, grab the Dev subnet ID, copy it, and paste it into the subnet ID. Well, we could use the managed identity, but we're not going to do it in this case. So click on Assign, and we're done. So we have to repeat the process. Let's go take a look and do it for the QA resource group. So go to QA, go to Policies. Oh, I've already got it in place. Let's go take a quick look at it. All right. We'll go up and do an edit assignment. And you can see the same fields, and there's the resource group. Actually, that's the resource ID for the QA subnet. We can just close that down. We're pretty much done. So let's go and prove this actually works. Let's go back to Dev, add a machine. We'll choose a basic Windows server. Go over here and select Windows Server 2016. Click on Create. Give it a name. We'll make this one called Demo Dev. That's good enough. Make sure you use the same region where you define the VNet. Let's put in our identity information here. Move on to disks. We don't need any disks. Inside networking, we're going to select the VNet called non-prod. And then you can see it'll automatically pop up the two subnets. So D is alphabetically ahead of Q, so that's why it popped in with dev. But let's see what happens if we try and push this or create this machine using the QA subnet. We can turn off the diagnostics on this one. Advanced, nope. Tags, nope. Review and create. So if everything's done right, this should actually fail. Hey, there we go. Let's take a look and see what's going on. Disallow by policy. So it didn't work, which it shouldn't. I mean, we should not be allowed to build that machine with the QA subnet. So let's go back to the network tab and choose the dev subnet. Go up to review and create. It'll go through the validation. Validation passed. And that's it. That's exactly what we wanted to see. It's working. Any questions? Ping me below or put a note below. In the little box below, I'll put a couple of URLs that are useful. One for the kit and one for the resource manager. Thanks very much.